Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Right. First of all, I believe we have some members of our Youth Council in the gallery this evening, so I'd just like to welcome you to tonight's council meeting. Thank you. Before we start the meeting, can I ask members to have a minute's silence for a councillor, Julia Macaulay, who recently passed away. So we can have a minute's silence. Please stand. Item number 1, we have public questions. We have 2 valid questions which have been received from members of the public. It's set out on page 3 of the council agenda papers. There will be 30 minutes is allowed for questions from members of the public. Members of the public have 2 minutes in which to put their initial questions and 1 minute to put any supplementary questions. The person responding has 5 minutes for an initial reply and 2 minutes for a reply to a supplementary question. Any supplementary question must arise directly out of the substantive question or the reply. Question 1 is from Mrs. Graham. Is she in attendance? No, so we'll take the question as read. I believe Councillor Johnson, you're responding to this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for this question. While we welcome this funding, it is important to note that it's a relatively small amount of money. Therefore, my role as Commissioner for the Environment and Transport, I've been working closely with the officer team to develop options to maximise the impact of this grant, at the same time develop more of a community-led approach to clean up our high streets. Some of the initiatives include purchasing 2 new state-of-the-art mobile CCTV cameras so that we can work with communities to monitor litter hotspots in and around our town centres. Purchasing tools such as litter pickers, gloves and brushes for those volunteers who are keen to get involved in the clean-ups. Working with schools on an exciting new project involving design and implementation of unique litter and recycling bins for our town centres, promote positive behaviours and educating communities on environmental issues which are important to them, such as littering, dog fouling and fly tipping. Hope this gives you a feel for some of the initiatives that we've been introducing with this funding. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question is from Mr. Wynne. Do we have him in attendance? No, we'll also take that question as read, and I believe Councillor Johnson, you're responding to this as well. Thank you.
I am, thanks, Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Wynne for this very important question. The Council is certainly committed to expanding its provision for public electric vehicle charging points to support the shift to electric vehicles. In fact, we are currently working with other authorities in the North East to examine bidding opportunities and other potential means to expand EV infrastructure. However, I think it's important to highlight that EV charging infrastructure required to achieve this shift cannot be the sole responsibility of the Council. Whilst we will continue to expand our public charging estate, we expect that individual residents and tenants living in the borough who are making the shift to electric vehicles ensure that domestic charging arrangements are considered at the point of vehicle purchase. This will require the vehicle owner to pay for the electricity used to charge their vehicle. I do know that the government offer a grant which is available from the Office for Low Emission Vehicles towards the cost of purchasing and installing a home charging point. Up to £500 is available. I'm sure the electric vehicle dealer will be able to point you in the right direction. In relation to our North Tyneside independent living schemes, where car parking is of a shared nature, we are more than happy to work with tenants to explore potential solutions for the location of charging points. We'll continue to explore the options to support the introduction of public charging points across the borough, as we are all aware that demand for electric vehicle charging points will continue to increase. Thanks.
Thank you. Have received apologies from Councillors Brian Burdis, Carol Burdis, Councillor Karen Clark, Councillor Julie Cruddas, Muriel Green, Councillor Janet Hunter, John Sterling, Francis Sweetman and Councillor Parker Leonard. Do we have any other apologies? Councillor
Councillor Ken Barry and Councillor Pam McIntyre, please.
Thank you. Can I please ask members to sign the relevant attendance sheet that's going around? Thank you. And any declarations of interest? Can I remind members if they have any registrable and or non-registrant interests in matters appearing on the agenda and the nature of the interest they must verbally declare in respect of any items of business to be discussed at this meeting and the nature of such interests. You are also invited to disclose any dispensation from the requirement to declare any registrable and or non-registrable interest that have been granted to you in respect of any matters appearing on the agenda. Those members should also complete the card which is circulated and on the desks and return it to the receptacle located at the desk of the Democratic Services Officer before leaving. Item 4. The next item is minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 16th of May 2019, which have been previously circulated. Can I ask the council to confirm those minutes? Thank you. Item 5. The annual financial report. The purpose of this report is to seek full council's approval of the 2018-19 audited annual financial report in accordance with Section 9(2) of the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015. Can I ask Councillor Glindon to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm pleased to present to Council tonight the annual financial report and the audit completion report from the external auditors. Members are aware that the draft 2018-19 financial report was published on the 31st of May 2019 in line with statutory requirements. Members were provided with a briefing on the financial report by the Chief Finance Officer and a link to those published draft statements. Members have had the opportunity to raise questions on the statements. To date, no questions have been asked and there have been no questions raised from any members of the public. The financial statements are a complex technical document. Preparing them is a major project every year, but always has met the challenge for early publication of the drafts on the 31st of May. The external auditors are then equally challenged in completing the audit within the 2-month window. This year was the first year for Ernst Young appointment, which adds to the challenge, and they had to undertake work to understand the authority from scratch. There have been some changes to the draft statements published, and I know there are a few minor areas of work to be concluded by Mr. Stuart Kenny, the audit manager from Ernst Young, and he's here tonight to give the Council highlights of the audit for 2018-19 and to take any relevant questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've all now got a copy of the audit results report. First of all, I just want to apologise for obviously the lateness in this report actually being provided, and this is just down to the condensed timeline. So in order to give you a meaningful report, we had just delayed it just a little bit just to make sure that everything was in there that we thought was necessary. So this document details the work performed and our findings from the audit. The main headline is that we plan to issue both an unqualified true and fair opinion on the financial statements and an unqualified value for money opinion for the Council before the deadline of the 31st of July. However, as at today's date, there are still a few minor areas that we're just still working through, but again, that is just down to it being a first-year audit and also down to the condensed timetable. So, if I could just quickly sort of take you through the main headlines from the report. We presented this report last night to the Audit Committee and went through it in quite a bit of detail. So what I'm proposing to do is to just pick out the main sort of salient points. So if I could ask you to turn to section 1 of the report, the executive summary, which is page 12, I think, of your report. So in the executive summary, this is the main highlights from the audit. So the first area that I just wanted to highlight was, as at the publication date of the report, there were a number of areas that were outstanding. I can now confirm that apart from the bottom three, which relate to the whole of government account submission, the review of the final financial statements, and the final review of the audit work completed and the audit completion procedures, all work is now complete. That's pretty much exactly where we would expect to be at this particular point. Towards the bottom of the page, we've then just highlighted the significant audit differences. The main area that I want to highlight here to start off with is that there have been no unadjusted audit differences. So this is a really positive thing, which means that actually we've reached agreement with management on every single area. We haven't had a disagreement in terms of the treatment, and every audit adjustment that we feel should be made to the accounts has been properly reflected. You will notice that there are actually two audit differences there. Since the publication of this report, there's been a third one that I'll also take you through. However, I just wanted to start off with the audit difference at the bottom of the page, which relates to the McLeod judgment. So this is an audit adjustment that is affecting the whole of the local government sector. So this relates to the local government pension scheme and the fact that I think it was back in sort of December of last year and subsequently has been updated in June of this year, some guidance and a particular legal case around age discrimination and defined benefit pension schemes. This guidance, this actual case identified that there was potentially age discrimination, and as a result, councils and all local government pension scheme bodies are being asked to go back and revise their pension estimates that were included in the initial draft financial statements. So this has been completed by the council in a very short time frame, and this has resulted in the pension liability in the draft financial statements increasing by 28 million. Again, this is impacting upon every single local government body across the country. The second adjustment there, the one at the top, relates to a prior period adjustment regarding the disclosure of foundation schools in the council's accounts. Now, this has arisen as a result of this being a first-year audit, and this being the time that we've actually really got to grips with all of the various assumptions within the council's accounts. So we reviewed, there is various technical guidance regarding the treatment of schools within council's financial statements. So we've reviewed the guidance, we've reviewed the council's treatment, and we've had numerous discussions with management and challenged around why foundation schools were on balance sheet. Following those discussions, the decision's been made to take them off balance sheet because there wasn't any obvious signs of control in terms of from the school side, in terms of from the council side. Like I said, this is really sort of a very technical area, but the impact of that is that the net book value in terms of the PPE on the balance sheet have reduced by 336 million. The final adjustment I just wanted to pick up on, which isn't listed in there, which is a relatively late adjustment, relates to the council's shares in Newcastle Airport. So, as you may be aware, as part of the LA7, the council received a revised valuation in relation to Newcastle Airport this year, which saw a significant decrease in the value that was included in the draft accounts. We've subsequently reviewed that valuation and challenged some of the assumptions that the expert valuer who prepared the valuation have made. And we've actually identified, and the valuers updated their valuation, and it's actually resulted in the value increasing back to 10.8 million, which is around about 100,000 more than it was in the previous year. So all of the impairment that was in there has subsequently been written out. The only other area that I really wanted to highlight is in relation to value for money, because as I mentioned, we obviously provide a financial statements opinion, but also a value for money opinion. And we've included further detail in the body of the report. However, I just wanted to pick up, and it's on page 14, that we, as part of our audit planning procedures, we identify a number of different significant risks, and we look at those risks that we feel could have a significant impact upon the arrangements of the council and a significant impact upon our actual opinion. So at the audit planning stage, we identified financial sustainability as a potential risk, and that is pretty common across most local government bodies. However, after reviewing the procedures and performing detailed tests in this area, we are comfortable that the council has sufficient arrangements in place in order to ensure that that is not a risk, and therefore we are happy to sign off an unqualified value for money opinion. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a concern which I also raised at the Audit Committee last night. How does the Cabinet Member, or indeed the External Auditor, feel that we as elected members can discharge our duties properly? We're requested to approve these reports when 225 pages of reports were delivered to us barely 24 hours ago. The agenda for this meeting came out as on the due time. 225 pages are there for us all to digest. I wonder if everybody else can say that they've thoroughly read them. How do you feel that we can thoroughly discharge our duties in relation to this? Indeed, sorry, if I might carry on. Indeed, the actual annual financial report was not delivered to members in the Courier last night. It has only been available today.
Chair, I don't think it's a question. I should answer this question. It was a case of, I appreciate what you said. The report was received by the council last Thursday. It went through by officers in the council Friday and Monday. It was finalised, I believe, on Tuesday and sent on Wednesday. So it was really a matter of time rather than. And I know it's a huge report because I've got a copy of the full copy here. It's just, it was the circumstances that happened. But you were only asked at the audit committee, I believe, is just to note the report, not to agree the report, just to note the report.
But if I may, Chairman, today we are asked to approve these reports, and I hear what you said about the tightness of time, etc., but the fact remains that 225 pages, we are expected to have read them and studied them and approved them, and I don't think that is sufficient time. It doesn't really give me any comfort to hear the problems with timelines.
We've all had the same report, all delivered at the same time. It was explained fully, I believe, last night at Audit Committee, and the committee agreed to note the report as requested. It's already been explained why there was a delay in getting the report.
Chairman, if I may go back to my question, how is it felt that we can discharge our duties when all this volume of paperwork, we're £500 million business, we're representing 200,000 residents, we need to be satisfied that we can discharge our duties? How is that the case?
Councillor Clinton, you'd like to come in?
The report from the auditors was that, that's something different than what we're talking about, because that was held up through, not negotiations, through people talking back and forth. The report itself was published on the 31st of May. And it was online for anybody to look at, and there was a report given by the Chief Finance Officer who published draft statements. So you've had since the 31st of May really to look at them.
Chairman, the audit results report which accompanies this, we were asked, one of the questions raised last night by the Deputy Chairman of the committee, who is an independent, asked the auditors if it was possible to have a draft earlier. And he said, no, it wasn't. That would be pretty meaningless because there are alterations. We got it so late. We're getting this late. My point remains, I don't think that we can discharge our duties fully.
That was the supplementary report, isn't it, that you're talking about, that we received last night? The financial report we've had for 6 weeks and haven't received any questions whatsoever on the financial report in those 6 weeks, which we've all had 6 weeks to look at.
The final report and the audit report have not been available until yesterday afternoon.
That was the audit report. We've all had the financial report for 6 weeks and nobody's asked any questions in 6 weeks on that financial report. It's been explained why we had it delivered late by the auditor, by the cabinet member. We can't just keep going over old ground. It's been explained why it's late. End of. We've all had the same report at the same time. it's been agreed, and it was noted at committee last night. Councillor Clinton. Martin Rank.
Chair, I mean, this wasn't a question, it was more a statement, because I was on the audit committee last night, and there was a valid concern raised by Councillor Wallace, but it also was agreed fully. And the audit report itself, although it was put in the courier to us, it was circulated by email earlier in the day, and I did print it off and read it. I believe a number of other councillors did. So we were all comfortable with noting the report last night. There wasn't an issue in doing that at all.
Councillor Brockbank.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I would say, as somebody who's only been on council for a year, I find it extraordinary, somebody who doesn't have a financial background, to be expected within less than 24 hours to digest this audit report, which I'm sure you would agree is very technical, and to come to some considered opinion about the democratic discharge of the function of our fiscal responsibilities for the Borough of North Tyneside. This seems to be a recurrent pattern. It happened last year. I'm just wondering, can we have some guarantees that will not happen next year, that opposition members and indeed all members will have some decent amount of time to consider this? It seems bizarre to me in the extreme, if it were in the private sector, that this sort of behaviour would not be acceptable. And we are asked to discharge...
We're not in the private sector, this is the public sector.
We're asked to discharge considerable amounts of money on behalf of our residents. I think it's a decent thing to ask. Happened last year, it's happened this year. Will you give it as a chairman? Will it change next year? Can we have this in advance,
No, I can't
please?
say that it'll change next year because we haven't got that ability to say it'll change next year. I think every council in the country is suffering the same problem. It's having to digest information that's submitted late. And Brendan would like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Just for a degree of clarity, the reason that the timescales are as compressed as they are is because of changes to the regulations that were made in, I understand, 2014, which then compresses the timescales for both the consideration of the draft and then the consultation and then the work that is undertaken by the external auditors. That being the case, the Council is rather constrained between the two dates that it has for publication of its draft accounts and for the publication of this document at the end of July. There are 43 working days and 30 of those are taken over by public consultation. So the Council is somewhat limited in the flexibility it has in those time limits.
Councillor Clinton.
Chair, if my memory serves me well, which it does quite a lot these days, if you go back to when Councillor Wallace was the Cabinet Member of Finance, we had the same problems as what she's receiving now.
Been told that the rules came in 2014.
I didn't quite hear that.
Just been told, Chairman, that the rules came in 2014. Councillor Glindon was Cabinet Member for Finance then.
Can we come in, Councillor Rankin?
Yes, again, just one question. If the opposition is so indignant about this, can I ask that they submit their budget notice of objection before the deadline? Because we normally get only a few hours to digest that. And again, it is around spending residents' money. Thank you.
If we have no further questions for the auditor, can we go to the vote, please? Oh, seconded, right. Can I ask Councillor Clinton to move the report, please?
It's been moved, it now needs to be seconded.
I'll formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Okie doke. Sorry, Councillor Pickard. Right, are there any further questions? I'll now invite members to speak to the motion. Councillor Clinton.
There's nobody else speaking. I'll just sum up on it, if that's all right. We expect the final audits that are going to be received early next week. In an unexpected event that there are further significant changes, all members will be notified as soon as possible in writing by the Chief Finance Officer. With that in mind, I ask the Council to approve the recommendations set out in 1.2 of the report. Can I thank our new external auditor for his graciousness in coming here tonight. So I'm asking to agree the report.
Thank you, Councillor Glindon. We'll now go to the vote. Those in favour? And those against? That's carried. Thank you. Next item.
Right, go on.
Item 6, Climate Emergency Declaration. In June 2019, Cabinet received a progress report on the authority's low-carbon plan. This report provided Cabinet with a summary of the progress being made to reduce the carbon footprint of the authority and the borough. Whilst Cabinet recognised excellent progress was being made against original targets and paid credit to the leadership shown on this issue by the Youth Council, it was stated at the meeting that the Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport would be bringing a report to this Council meeting to seek agreement that the authority declares a climate emergency and setting out the steps the authority proposes to take in response to this emergency. Can I ask Councillor Johnson to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. As Chair said, in 2016, Cabinet approved a low carbon plan which set a challenging target to reduce the authorities and boroughs' carbon footprint by 50% by 2027. In June, we received a report noting the Cabinet recognised the excellent progress being made and paid credit to the leadership shown on this issue by the Youth Council. However, at this time of stark warnings over the risk of global warming, Cabinet felt that the authority must do more to mitigate against climate change and request that climate emergency be declared at full council, along with the steps the authority proposes to take in response to this emergency. In presenting this report to Council, I think it's important to set some context. Our authority has a long and proud track record of working hard to protect the environment and reduce harmful greenhouse gas emissions. Across the world, we are seeing people demand action from governments to address the emergency climate's facing, and young people in particular have inspired governments and politicians everywhere to intensify their efforts. I'm very proud of the work our young Cabinet, Environment Group and young people across the borough who are acting as champions in reducing emissions, increasing recycling, reducing single-use plastics and protecting our beautiful coastline and open spaces. I'm working closely with our young people to ensure the authority builds on their views and ideas into this important work on this matter. The authority has taken very positive steps directly to reduce carbon emissions where we can. For example, in our own buildings, but also act as a community leader and an example of best practice inspiring positive actions to residents, businesses and visitors to our borough. We ensure that we manage our buildings and fleet effectively. We have retrofitted energy-efficient technology into our buildings. We use modern vehicles with low emissions, and we have recently reduced our first electric vehicles into our fleet. We've also spent £3 million in reducing the carbon footprint of our street lighting, most recently through converting our 7,000 columns to more efficient LED lighting. We helped install about 20,000 energy-efficient measures in residents' home, including loft and cavity wall insulation, solid wall insulation, replacement boilers, brand new central heating systems, and the authority also entered into a groundbreaking partnership with E.ON to install solar PV panels on 1,500 council homes, providing electricity to tenants, and at the time, the biggest social housing PV project in the entire country. The authority's carbon footprint at the end of 2018-19 looks like it will be 45% lower than in 2010-2011. And across the borough of North Tyneside, the carbon footprint has reduced by 39%, which is a great achievement. Despite our successes to date, further urgent action is needed to protect our planet. I therefore ask Council to agree all the recommendations of Section 1.2 of this report, including declare a climate emergency, accelerating the delivery of our existing carbon reduction targets to 2023, and setting a net zero target by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Can I ask Councillor Kerwin to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by saying how happy I am to be seconding a motion and a report to declare a climate emergency in North Tyneside tonight. And I'd also like to make a special thanks to the Youth Council, who've been pushing this agenda for a very long time and have made sure that it's here tonight and it's at the top of this Council's priority list. In North Tyneside, we should be very proud of the progress we've made so far, achieving our carbon reduction targets years ahead of schedule, though we still have a very, 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 very long way to go. But I know, with the current leadership that this Council is showing, going forward, we will not only be able to meet these targets, but beat them to make North Tyneside carbon neutral. I want to be a little bit cheeky and use this opportunity to highlight some of the amazing groups and residents from Monksey and North who are helping make North Tyneside carbon neutral as we go forward. Firstly, the Whitley Bay Allotment Society, so working with myself and Councillor Paul Richardson, have been able to secure a grant to plant a community orchard, planting hundreds of new trees at the coast and creating a wonderful community facility. St Mary the Virgin Monkseyton Church are currently redeveloping their entire grounds, And at the heart of those plans are putting the environment first, improving community spaces, and again, working with myself and Councillor Paul Richardson, we're working with them to secure funding to install 2 new electric car charging points, the first for the area, and a wonderful community facility as well. Plastic Free North Tyneside, formerly Plastic Free Whitley Bay, was founded by a Monkseaton North resident, Emma Joe. Myself and Councillor Drummond had the pleasure of being at the very first event and have supported it ever since. The work of Plastic Free North Tyneside is now continuing throughout the borough, working with businesses, community groups and schools to help reduce plastic waste and protect the environment. And finally, Coquet Park First School, which has now won the Eco Schools Green Flag Award 3 times. They've partnered with the council's Wash, Squash and Recycle campaign, they've run switch-off events, and each class has its own eco ambassador. To conclude, I'm very proud the council is taking leadership on this, but it's important to remember that the climate and the environment is everyone's responsibility. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kerwin. Do we have any questions? Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Chair. I have 4 questions, if that's all right. First one refers to section 1.2.2. And given as we've heard the council is already ahead on its carbon reduction targets, I just wondered if the Cabinet member could explain what added value the declaration of a climate emergency actually gives. I suppose what we're saying is, do B and C in this section rely on A being done, or could B and C happen anyway?
Councillor Johnson?
I think it's very important to declare a climate emergency. We've seen from around the world that climate emergency is in at the moment. We've seen the IPCC report that says if we do not reduce our temperature increase by 1.5 degrees by mid-century, there'll be a global catastrophe on our hands. We'll see the very first climate change refugees. We'll see extreme weather increasing around the world. The time is now to act on climate change. It's absolutely imperative we declare a climate emergency. But I do thank you for highlighting the great work we've already done on our plan and we will continue to do. But we do need to declare a climate emergency now so we stand on the right side of history. But we also need to continue the great work, becoming carbon neutral by 2050 and continuing our great work on our climate change, our low carbon plan.
Thank you, Chair. Next question. If a climate strike, the like of which we've seen in other areas, was to be planned for this area, I just wondered, as a previous head teacher, if the Mayor would encourage pupils to remain in school, both for their own benefit and other people's benefit, and indeed the teachers' benefits, rather than go out on and miss school.
You don't mind. And I will always do best, my very best, for the residents and the children and everyone in this borough.
I'm sorry, Chair, that doesn't really answer the question I asked. It's a choice. Thank you for that interjection.
Sorry, I just said I'll do my very best for everybody in this borough. And if that's what you're telling me is the best and what we understand to be the best, of course I will do it.
Doctor, I'm asking your opinion of what's the best.
I've just...
Thank you.
Councillor Austin, I'll go further on that question for you because you're meant to be directing the questions to me, not the Mayor, as the move of the report, you know. But you know, head teachers in your ward sanctioned some students to be off to go to the climate strike. I was very proud to be at the climate strike with a lot of students from North Tyneside.
Thank you, Chairman. Third question. The Labour Mayor for the North of Tyne, Jamie Driscoll, has recently come out in support of extending the runway at Newcastle Airport. I just wondered if the Cabinet member could tell us what his attitude is to this plan, whether he supports it as well.
You'll have to ask Jamie Driscoll what his attitude is with regard to expanding.
No, I'm asking you what you're asking.
No, you asked me what I thought about Jamie wanting to extend the airport in Newcastle.
No.
You'll have to ask Jamie what he thinks about that. You also want to ask me what my opinion is on extending the airport at Newcastle.
That's what I said.
But you had to get your bit in about Jamie first. I'll say back to you, what's your opinion on the government expanding Heathrow? What is your opinion on that? Your government expanding Heathrow.
We're not here to get personal opinions.
Councillor Russell, I'll answer your question. The airport is absolutely imperative to the region's economic development. We know that, you know that. Even though you try to sell off our share of the airport when you were in power, but we know that the airport is absolutely imperative to our region's economic development.
No.
We'll do our absolute best to work the airport to be as low carbon as possible in the future.
That's not true. And my question, for the Cabinet member's benefit, mentioned Jamie Driscoll as an introduction to the issue of the runway being extended, and I asked you for your opinion on whether it should be.
And you've had your answer.
Yes
Can
or
we
no?
move on, please?
Well, I
Councillor
very much doubt
Thurloway.
I didn't have any answer, but let's
Councillor
move on.
Thurloway, please.
Sorry, I have another question. I had 4. I did mention at the beginning.
Last one, thank you.
Yeah, that's 4, yeah. I wondered if...
Hand count.
Good. It's a good start. Always a good start to be able to count. Could the North of Tyne members of the council encourage the mayor to set an example and use public transport? I'm talking about the North of Tyne mayor, just in case anyone wonders. And use public transport rather than drive a large 4x4 vehicle.
That's out of the remit of this council. You're asking the mayor of the North of Tyne how he drives. That's nothing to do with this council, what the mayor of the North of Tyne does. Okay, thank you. Can we now move on, please? Councillor Thurloway.
Thank you, Chair. Would Councillor Johnson assure me that this declaration and this report are not in reaction to the irresponsible actions of the group Extinction Rebellion?
Councillor, I think you know we are not a reactive council, we are a very proactive council. This has been coming for a long time from our fabulous young people that sat in the gallery over there, and a lot of pressure from within our group, as you know. This is directly responsive to our young people of the borough who are championing the climate change movement at the moment, and the people in our group that are absolutely championing it. We also have an ambition to be a cleaner, greener council, and that's absolutely why we are doing this.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Carbon reduction is much bigger than just North Tyneside. Given the Mayor's close working relationship with the North of Tyne Mayor, we should be encouraging him to reduce the carbon footprint in all projects he supports and undertakes, including the use of electric vehicles.
Councillor Johnson.
Chair, the group opposites don't seem to realise that if you look at the top of this report, it says Councillor Johnson seems to be asking Norma Redfern a lot of questions when I'm the person proposing this report. We always encourage within the North of Tyne greener, cleaner schemes and more electric charging. In fact, if your government actually give us the money for transforming cities, then we'll show you how we can actually unlock the potential of the North's transport, make it greener, more sustainable for public to use, increase the capacity. But it's down to your government to give us that money, Councillor Miller. Whether they will or not, we'll see.
Actually, Chair, can I just come back on that one? The question that was posed, wasn't a dig. It was actually, given the close working relationship of Norma Redfern to the North of Tyne Mayor, will she be encouraging him to push the carbon agenda forward?
The report was written by Councillor Johnson, so therefore any questions can I ask you to direct to Councillor Johnson. If you have any questions for the Mayor, can you submit them as questions to the Mayor in previous meetings? Thank you.
But I'm sure Councillor Miller, as you might have read Mayor Driscoll's manifesto, this was at the heart of his manifesto when he's elected, so absolutely we will always encourage the Mayor to act on this, and he will continue to do so. And he's bringing forward his own plans on low carbon at the moment.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got several questions. In case climate change protesters stage a demonstration here in North Tyneside or a similar event, does the Cabinet member have plans in place with the police and the emergency services to ensure that our residents can still go about their lawful business and get to hospitals and surgeries, etc., to ensure that, unlike in London, people aren't prevented from getting medical treatment or visiting the dying?
I don't think that's related to the report, actually.
It is, Chairman, because we are talking about climate change, are we not?
We're not talking about protesters, we're talking about climate change, so it's not relevant to the report.
But there have been huge incidences of cities being brought to a standstill, and I'm concerned to ensure that it does not happen here, that we, as part of dealing with this, that we are properly prepared, Chairman.
I don't think it's relevant to the report, but are you happy to answer
Yep,
that,
absolutely.
Councillor? Thank you.
We also have plans in place for any such event that might occur, and we also know that these people in London did give advance notice of when they were holding these demonstrations. So, of course, we will have plans in place to ensure that people can go out and their own business. I think it's important to understand, though, the Extinction Rebellion protest is a tiny proportion of the movement on climate change. We've seen our fantastic young people hold many demonstrations around the Newcastle City Centre and around the North East. Peaceful, open, getting action on this issue. It's a very small percentage of people that do the disruptive demonstrations that we've seen in London. very important matter, but we will have any plan when they absolutely, if they notify us that they're holding an event.
Councillor Brockbank?
Sorry, Chairman, I said I had several
Right,
questions.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. My second question is that a new deep coal mine was given approval by Cumbria Council quite recently. Were there to be a similar application here in North Tyneside, what would the Cabinet members' approach to that be?
Cymru's got nothing to do with me. That would go to the planning committee. I'm not a member of the planning committee. Well, I will not be a member of the planning committee very soon. It's down to the planning committee to decide on the day what they think of that. Personally, when I spoke reopening deep coal mine, absolutely not.
Thank you, Chairman. As has been referred to by the auditors, the Council is a part owner of Newcastle International Airport. What effect will a declaration of a climate emergency have on the Council's involvement with that airport? Will the Council or the Cabinet member be discouraging residents from taking flights?
I think you remember what I said before, Councillor Wallace, that the Newcastle Airport is absolutely key to the economic development of the region. We continue to work with the airport. I mean, had you got your way when you were coming in for finance, when you tried to sell off part of the airport, we wouldn't be...
Not try to sell off the airport.
Oh, we'll see.
Simply a correction, and I think the mocking from the other side is rather unbecoming to this Council.
Had you had your way, we wouldn't have our voice in the opinion, but we always continue with the Mayor as our representative on the airport board, always continues. And if you look at the airport's plan last year, they have a plan about how they're reducing the impact, mitigating the impact of climate change going forward. But the airport is absolutely core to the regional development of the airport, and we will continue to support the airport.
Final question, Madam Chairman, is that it's referred to in the report that the carbon footprint of the Council is made up of the power and heat used within its buildings. Are there plans to reduce temperatures in Council-run buildings?
We try to make our buildings as energy efficient as possible. Where there's any opportunities for us to increase the energy efficiency, we'll always take it. If you've got any building in particular in mind, then send me an email and I'll look at it for you. But I've always been proactive in taking action on energy efficiency across our estate.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Brockbank.
Thank you, Chair. Finally, being a good Democrat, I have listened to other views on this issue. I just want to ask the Cabinet member specifically that I am aware that whilst North Tyneside is aiming to be carbon neutral by 2050, other local authorities in the region are aiming for 2030. Why the 20-year delay for North Tyneside?
I think your government, when they declared a climate emergency in Parliament, set 2050 as the standard and what is the national standard going forward. But I think if you look at the IPCC report, it's very clear that 2050 is the deadline. We have a very good track record. I'm glad I asked this question, actually, Councillor Brockbank. We've got a very good track record. If you've seen our low carbon plan of achieving our targets way before we meet them, we hope to achieve our target way before 2050. But we set 2050 as our target because that is the last possible date. That is when we want to be carbon neutral by. But we absolutely hope to smash that target and bring this forward as far as we can.
One final one. Thank you very much for answering that, and I'm certainly not going to respond to the issue about government. Obviously, with a great leader in place now, I'm sure everything will come right. So, when you 2050 being the target, what would be that smash target? What would, as a cabinet member, what would be that smash? What would be your ideal figure? If other local authorities in the area can or sit in 2030, what would be your absolute ideal for the residents of North Tyneside to really punch above its weight?
As soon as possible.
Do you have any further questions? No, I'll invite members to speak to the motion. Councillor Bell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to say, obviously Carl's got the post now, but there's others who've had his post. I think John Sterling done, I don't know if he's at night, but he's doing a great job when he was in charge of cutting our carbon footprints, getting the Mayflowers. And I've shadowed him for a while, and on the opposition side, he's retired now, but Ed Hodgson always spoke about the environment. So I think the council has had a long history of environmental issues. And I did watch Glorious Leader today, and apparently the Green Revolution is coming, so hopefully we will get on board with the councils and we can drive down, and we won't 2050 will be long, you know, we'll get targets long before 2050, because the Prime Minister said it's his major priority, so we'll watch this space.
Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, the government has a very good record of action on climate change concerns. We're already the first country in the G7 to legislate for long-term climate targets, and there's been significant support for renewable technologies. We've seen greenhouse gas emissions falling quite dramatically, and the UK has decarbonised faster than any other G20 country, whilst we're continuing to grow the economy hugely successfully. We were near the bottom of the league tables for investing in clean energy under the last Labour government. We have very innovative scientists and engineers. I personally would like to see more investment in carbon capture as a new way forward. There's been a lot of investment in the energy network too, but it is noticeable that Labour's renationalisation plans would disrupt efforts to tackle climate change. There's a fear that investment is drying up, which will put in doubt the innovative stuff that we need to develop and deliver a net zero carbon economy. Who will invest if there's a risk that a future Labour government could seize their company assets without proper compensation? I think also we must be very careful as we go forward that we don't cripple our businesses by higher taxes and regulations here, whilst other countries do little to tackle climate change. We still need to be able to encourage our companies with their growth and employing more people. We also must ensure that the advice which we have is sound, and that's what we're basing our decisions on. We remember, for example, that the use of diesels was encouraged, I think, by Gordon Brown when he was Prime Minister, not all that long ago, and yet now that policy has gone completely into reverse. I think also that we do need to be really clear with people about what this could mean for their lifestyles. We all rely hugely on a lot of electric equipment. That electricity has to be generated somehow. Huge changes in a matter of 20 or 30 years for people using, for example, umpteen mobile phones, umpteen televisions in houses. Electricity is used all over the place. Dealing with climate change will require changes in lifestyle, and people have to be aware of that. It may mean ceasing flights, for example. And we have to be very clear that this is what people do understand when decisions are being made. And we've got to avoid hypocrisy. There's already been reference made to the use of vehicles, and indeed a cursory glance around the car park here shows some extremely large vehicles in use, including, of course, the one that's frequently parked outside Quadrant West. Subject to those comments, however, we do support this report. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? The Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to our Youth Council, who's worked very hard, joined with us on this particular issue. You've done us proud. And I just want to say to the Cabinet Member and to John Sterling beforehand, when he was Cabinet Member, they have done a great deal to get us to this stage. And I want to say, now we have a new Prime Minister who's promised us money for the green agenda. We look forward to receiving the money to get on with the job. Because we've had reduced budgets for the last 7, 8 or 9 years, we've done the best we can. So thank you very much, and I look forward to all this money coming down the road where we can all get on with the job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I now invite the mover of the motion, the right to reply?
Thank you, Chair. I did hope the members opposite might not go down a political line tonight so we could, but of course they had to take their digs in that, so here's my response. Since 2016, we've played a remarkable, the Conservative Government Party have played a remarkable game. One in which they make unprecedented promises in action on climate change, while they actively reverse the essential policies of mitigation in practice. We know where the local Conservatives in North Tyneside get their inspiration from now for making promises they can't keep. Cameron began, and one of the very few policies Theresa May actually managed to get through Parliament, was the major reversal and backing away from our carbon targets. Abolished the Department for Energy and Climate Change, merged into BIS, and overseeing a policy that meant that neither the fourth nor fifth carbon budget would be met, as both existing strategy and policy was insufficient. In the 2017 manifesto for the Conservative government, it set out 5 giant challenges we face as a country. None of them were climate change. However, one of them was saying that the oil and gas sector continues to play a critical role in our economy and domestic energy supply. We know the Conservatives naturally have a poor record. That's why Labour and local government for the past 9 years has ensured that despite the Tory cuts in action, we make progress in tackling our carbon problem. You've already heard in North Tyneside that the authority's carbon footprint reduced by 45%, and the borough as a whole 39%, because of excellent schemes this council has pushed, from the largest solar PV scheme in social housing to a major behavioural change campaign. It's been heartwarming to see the passion from my colleagues in the Labour group, and even better to see our young people in this borough caring so deeply about this issue. The young mayor, the deputy young mayor, youth council and the environment group have all been pushing and working with us on this and a whole host of other environmental issues. Many people try and take credit for us declaring this emergency tonight, but it's those in the Labour group and the passionate young people, coupled with our desire to be a cleaner, greener council, that has led to take our carbon work, which has been very successful, to take a step further. The government can unlock our potential in North Tyneside. What they need to do is give us the funding, devolve the funding and powers to tackle these issues. As we've seen, if you look at a graph, we'll see that transport has remained relatively stable in terms of carbon. Industry and housing and commercial have all seen big decreases. The government need to unlock transport funding for the North East immediately. Give us powers and funding to tackle these issues. Give us funding we need to unblock transport growth for the Transforming Cities Fund, which basically reopened the Ashton and Blythe line with a stop in North Tyneside, dualling the Metro south of the river, which would unlock real capacity on the Metro for North Tyneside residents. Increasing the capacity of the East Coast Main Line and expanding it further to give it the capacity it desperately needs north of York to be sustainable long term. And give the combined authority power to control the buses so we can best serve the people of North Tyneside and get the best buses for people in the area. I absolutely urge everyone to support this motion so we can get on with tackling the problem and work together in this chamber and with our young people so we can mitigate the impacts of climate change and be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Can we now go to the vote? Those in favour? It's unanimous.
Unanimous, Chair.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Can we now go to item 7, the Common Seal? And the next one is Chair's announcements. I have a few announcements. First of all, I'd like to announce the charities that I will be supporting this year. The first being the Great North Air Ambulance. This is a charity that relies totally on public donations. They don't receive any funding whatsoever and rely on the tin shakers and donations and events. Every time that helicopter takes off, it costs between £3,000 and £5,000 for that flight to take place. Probably worth every single penny if any member of my family needed it, or indeed any of yours. So I hope throughout the year you will support the charities and any events and raffles that I propose to hold. The second is Operation Veteran. This is a follow-on from the great work that the Council is already doing with our veterans. Operation Veteran is an inclusive, not-for-profit organisation affiliated with VODA. It was set up to provide services, practical activities, support and access to veterans, which focuses on supporting veterans during their transition to civilian life and to assist with the difficulties experienced during their reintegration back into their own communities and to move forward with their lives. Operation Veteran is currently providing a free breakfast club and a hub facility at the YMCA in North Shields and has received over 500 attendances from more than 140 veterans since its launch in December 2017. The aims of these groups are to address social isolation amongst veterans, provide an opportunity for them to congregate and to share experiences in a familiar and safe environment, to improve health and well-being and develop a signposting and referral service for veterans who may require specialist advice and support. Also to allow visiting from professionals from public and third sector organisations to attend in an informal setting. To date, Operation Veteran has supported veterans with issues including homelessness, substance misuse, employability, financial hardship, health and well-being, including mental health, social isolation, and has several veterans struggling with mobility, PTSD and dementia. Veterans attending the groups have also become involved in free events and activities offered, i.e. walking sports, 10-pin bowling and fish and chip lunches. Operation Veteran has also recently launched a coffee morning for spouses, partners, family members and the carers of veterans to form peer support networks and to access professional support where required at the Exchange in North Shields. So again, I would ask you to support this very worthy cause and support our veterans and assist them as they have assisted us in the past. There's been lots of award ceremonies I've attended, such as football presentations, Rotary Club presentation, badminton presentations, which go with the job. But one of the ones I must mention is my attendance at the Friendship Games in Germany. Was one of our twin towns, Urshenschwick, where our young people did not only themselves proud, but their borough, their families, the college, and namely our country, because they're there representing UK and North Tyneside. The young people didn't win. We held everybody else up. But what we did win was the hearts of all the other teams. Everybody there and the other teams from Germany, Slovenia, Poland, Serbia wanted to be with our kids from North Tyneside. They were known as the party team. They had great fun. They brought laughter to everybody involved, and just everybody wanted to be with our kids. The staff involved were tremendous, and some of the young people said it was the best weekend of their lives and they'll never forget it. And you can't put a price on that. It is invaluable, these games, to these young people who may never ever get the opportunity to go abroad and share these experiences. It was fantastic. Citizenship ceremonies are fantastic as well. I would encourage any councillor who would like to attend to go along and meet our new citizens. I think that's about it. And also, we awarded the British Empire Medal to a lady from Wallsend who has worked tirelessly for 25 years plus. She's 85 years old and reads to young people. She goes into the school during the school holidays and sets up freezers on the walls, organises the library, all in her own time. So it was a deserved winner of the British Empire Medal. I think that's me done. And now, any mayor's announcements?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, before I go on to report, I just want to make it very clear, because it's really, really important that everybody, particularly we're on film, the fact that the financial report is public. And I can actually guarantee that we have numerous people out in the borough who scrutinise everything this council does. And I can show you lots and lots of emails where they come back and sort of question our actions. So I'm quite happy for this financial report to go ahead. I'd just like to start this evening by thanking everyone who participated in the recent peer review challenge. The peer review team included the Chief Executive of Salford City Council, the Director of Finance and Performance and Procurement of West Sussex Council, the Director of Regeneration and Growth at Sandwell Metropolitan Council, and the Chief Executive of Blackpool Coastal Housing, as well as the elected mayor and leader of Doncaster Metropolitan Council. And of course, there was a programme manager from the local government association. I really look forward to their report, because it will help us plan for the future, but it will be public. And to be quite honest, I just think every organisation needs to have someone outside of the organisation to come in and review what they're doing. So I look forward to this report. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate 4 of our community and voluntary sectors, programmes, who've actually got the Queen's Award. And it is pretty special in North Tyneside to have 4 winners of the Queen's Award, particularly in the light that only 6 were presented in the region and 4 came to North Tyneside. So well done to our people out there, our volunteers and helpers on that. They were the Walking with the North Tyneside, the volunteers at St Bernard's Church in North Shields, the Friends of Red House Ramblers, and Collingwood Bowling Club. Congratulations to them all and well done. And this perhaps will inspire other people to go on and do those kind of things in their area. And I'm sure that you'll all know that North Tyneside has stunning parks and green spaces. And I'm delighted to inform you that 7 of our borough's parks have made it onto this year's list of Green Flag Awards, and they're winners. It was announced on Tuesday, the 16th of July, by Keep Britain Tidy. I'd also like to take this opportunity, and I hope our officer up there is listening, because we have wonderful parks and wonderful green spaces. And it's up to the staff out there who continually go out and do a fantastic job and work hard on our behalf as councillors. And in light, as I said before, of our reduced budgets over the years, I think they're doing a wonderful job. But these are the people that sometimes we can't reach. So I hope, Mr. Scott, on my behalf and our behalf, that you go out and congratulate them on those 7 green flags that were received. I think that's amazing. The Mouth of Tyne Festival was again a resounding success. All tickets were sold very, very quickly. More than 100,000 people attended and brought over 1 million business to our local economy. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who was involved in making the festival such a success. We now can look forward to seeing the prestigious Tour of Britain cycle race coming to the borough on 9th of September and welcoming the riders and spectators to our fantastic borough when the race passes along our coastline. And I already know that many of our schools, our businesses and residents are eager to be involved. And thanks to our Cabinet member, Councillor Day, and our officers, they have actually organised 70 cycling events right across the borough over the summer. And this will be the icing on the cake, rather, won't it? I know that I've given you a long list of awards that the Spanish City has received at the last council meeting. But since then, we've been crowned the winner of the best change of use of an existing building and have been shortlisted for a best commercial project and best public service building. And when I think of all the negativity we've got in those early years, I think we should stand up proud for what we've achieved, to be quite honest. And as we lead to the summer holidays, I would like to thank you all for your hard work and your support. And I hope you get the opportunity to visit our fantastic beaches and our parks during this time. Thank you once again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Right. Item 10, questions by members of the council. Person responding has 5 minutes for initial reply and 2 minutes for a reply to a supplementary question. A supplementary question must be on the same subject matter and be put to the same Cabinet member. Any attempt to introduce new issues would be out of order. In the event that a procedural motion is moved under Rule 11, Section 9D, to refer responses to questions to the Head of Law and Governance for coordination and circulation of responses to members, the motion will need to be put to the vote. We have 3 valid questions, and the first question is from Councillor Brockbank. And do you want to ask the question or have it taken as read?
No, I'll read it, please. Given the flooding on Bromley Avenue in my ward in mid-June, does the elected mayor or her cabinet designate share the concerns of residents about the increased pressure on infrastructure of the proposed development in the local plan?
Councillor Pickard, I believe you're responding to this question.
Thank you, Chair. I'll deal with the issues raised by the question. First of all, the issue of flooding. Flooding is taken very seriously by the Council, and in addition to the 2 major flood alleviation schemes just completed at Fairfield Green and Briar Vale, officers have sound contingency plans in place to deal with these issues. The local plan is underpinned by a comprehensive strategic flood risk assessment. Specifically, flooding on the Merton Gap site was considered in our local plan, and the inspector stated, flood risk is a significant local concern following the storm event of Thunder Thursday. The frequency and intensity of such climate-related incidents are projected to increase, but I'm satisfied that the various strategic flood risk works takes this into account. The absence of objections from the Environmental Agency, Northumberland Water and other authorities provides additional confidence that surface and foul water can be appropriately drained from this site. Additionally, as I'm sure Councillor Brockbank is aware, planning applications are required to provide a detailed flood risk assessment that is reviewed by the Environment Agency, by Northumberland Water and the Council before any planning permission is granted for development. I fully understand the residents' concerns, and I am confident this Council has put in place through the local plan policy framework the right policies to ensure their concerns will be addressed as developer proposals are progressed, and the developers are required through the planning process to provide full flood mitigation measures on their site. If we now look at the address on the local plan, because Councillor Brockbank has consistently tried to make political capital by stating that he is against the local plan. I had at first put this down to naivety. However, he has had this situation explained a number of times, yet he continues in his misleading, simplified slogans of opposition to the local plan, but has yet failed to answer how he would resolve the disastrous consequences of following his policy. Let me reiterate what those consequences are. First of all, the local plan is a requirement of his Conservative government, and if we don't have it in plan, it will be subject to government intervention. No plan means developers can submit planning applications at will, and in the past a number of proposals which were not supported by the Council were allowed on appeal. Do you honestly believe that the developers would not welcome this situation and pile in with unrestricted development plans for Merton Gap, possibly increasing from 3,000 to what the developers originally wanted, 5,000 houses on that particular site? Your policy of replacing the local plan and your published statement to oppose all building on Merton Gap site would require you to find sites for an additional 6,592 houses above the present number. I explained at a past council meeting how that arrived at. If you have preserved the green belt, then there are two alternative strategies: either build on brownfield sites or on the greenfield sites. Does he propose that the extra 6,592 houses will be built on brownfield sites? If he does, then he could not have read the plan he proposes to get rid of, because the government inspector stated the council has undertaken a thorough exercise which has considered a vast array of brownfield sites, including those suggested in representations. Where suitable and achievable for housing, they are already accounted for in the plan. There is no compelling evidence that a significant brownfield site has been overlooked. The finite capacity of brownfield sites in North Tyneside would not meet all the housing, employment and service needs over the period up to 2032. Consequently, this would not be a reasonable alternative spatial strategy. Therefore, green land is required. So if we rule out brownfield sites and still take out Merton Gap, where will the greenfield sites be for the additional 6,592 houses? Once again, he provides no alternatives. He won't tell us or the residents of the borough where he proposes to build these houses. Once again, the government inspector states the spatial strategy of the plan seeks to secure sustainable development to meet the identified development needs while simultaneously protecting the green belt and significant areas of identified green infrastructure. Given the character and relatively small size of the borough, balancing these factors is not without challenges, but it also means that there are few, if any, reasonable alternatives to the spatial strategy. So if there are fewer alternative ways to protect the green belt, and Councillor Brockbank has failed to identify a single alternative site for his additional 6,592 houses, then he must be considering building on the green belt. The consequence of this would be, in the words of the government inspector, I am not persuaded that any alternative sizable greenbelt options are available that would not harmfully result in unrestricted urban sprawl, coalescence of settlements, or encroachments into the countryside. So I'll finish by saying, so the alternative is clear. Support our local plan to give us the tools to control development and protect the green belt, or go with the political posturing of the Conservatives and end up with uncontrolled development and unrestricted urban sprawl.
Thank you, Councillor Pickard. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you very much. I don't think I've actually got an answer there. I mean, if you don't want to do it, I'm quite happy to step in and do it for you, and do a jolly better job. I would just invite you to look at some of the comments by residents in Bromley Avenue who have been affected by this. And my question is, can I invite the Cabinet member to depart from the scripted speech for a change and respond to those residents who've been to me in droves, to give a 100% guarantee that next time there's a downpour in Bromley Avenue, that they will not be subject to flooding? That's a very simple question, yes or no?
There's, once again, two different issues, because I thought you would have done your homework and found out from the officers what the problems are in Bromley Avenue. I've already stated that the significant action that would be taken on the site would actually not have an effect on Bromley Avenue, because all the offlow from that site would actually be contained within the development needed. At the moment, the reason it's flooding is because the water is coming straight off the site. But even if the site, when it gets there will still be an issue in the surrounding area because of historical development in that particular area. And I'm sure perhaps I could invite you to meet with the officer responsible and try and find out the facts of the case before you start winding people up and giving false hope.
Thank you, Councillor Pickard. The next question is by Councillor Miller. Do you want to answer, take it as read? I believe Councillor Hall, you'll respond to the question.
Thank you. Of course, we are delighted to welcome the opening of the new purpose-built, state-of-the-art ambulatory care centre at the Northumbria Specialist Emergency Care Hospital. The ambulatory care centre will allow North Tyneside residents to have timely access to urgent care services, which will hopefully alleviate the demand placed on the emergency department. Just in case anyone is not familiar with the name ambulatory care, it just means you are able to get there to the centre by your own resources. However, many of our residents do not feel that they receive first-class NHS provision and still have lots of concerns, which are shared with the Cabinet and myself. There is no A&E provision in North Tyneside. Our residents have to go to A&E in Newcastle at the RVI or Cramlington at the Northumbria Specialist Emergency Care Hospital. What we do not welcome are the long waits some residents have to see a GP. Often the reason why people resort to attending A&E and urgent care departments is because they cannot get access to their GPs. It is hoped, however, that the new centre will enable 150 patients each day to be assessed, treated and discharged home on the same day basis, avoiding unnecessary admission to hospital. Their care will be delivered in purpose-built building that has been designed to be a relaxed and comfortable environment for patients. While struggling with waiting lists to keep an 18-week standard, delays in ambulance handovers and over 4 hours wait in A&E, Northumbria Healthcare got an outstanding CQC rating. The staff in the hospitals are rated against the best in the country. All the staff are dedicated to giving the best service. I end this answer by hoping that no one here has to use its wonderful facilities, especially this summer.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Do you have a supplementary question? No. Next question is from Councillor Wallace. Do you want to ask a question or have it taken as read?
I'll read it, please, Chairman. Can the elected mayor assure me that when a school is oversubscribed, the address of every applicant is properly verified before any places are granted?
Councillor Early, I believe you're answering the question.
Yes, Chair. Yes, I can confirm that in 2014, during our administration, a system was introduced to verify the addresses of applicants for schools that are oversubscribed against council tax records. If there are any discrepancies with the records, the local authority writes out to parents to request that they provide supplementary documentation to prove that they are residing at the address on their application form. Such supplementary documentation can include household bills, driving licences and pay slips. And of course, if Councillor Wallace or indeed any other councillor has concerns about instances of fraudulent misuse of the admission system, they should report that to the admissions team.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. Yes, I do. As many children in my ward within catchment of Whitley Lodge First School didn't get places at their first, second or third choice school, and I understand this has happened in other wards in previous years, does that verification extend to all the neighbouring schools which parents may have selected so that all those choices are verified, all those applicants are verified, and how many cases of fraudulent applications have been detected this summer?
Councillor Early?
It extends to those schools that are oversubscribed. And in terms of the number of cases where there were allegations raised, that is less than 5.
Thank you. That draws an end to this meeting. Can I thank you for your attendance and have a safe journey home? Thank you.